A Brief History of Special Education Law by me, Lauren McAdams. The National Defense Education Act of 1958 increased math and science education programs in America's public schools to fulfill national defense positions. The act also provided financial aid for the increasing numbers of students seeking four-year degrees from colleges and universities. The Mental Retardation Facility and Community Center Construction Act of 1963 was a result of the improvement of research and knowledge about mental illness. The act funded grants to build local mental health centers to provide care for those considered mentally ill, so they could live at home as opposed to living at an institution. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act provides accommodations to those with disabilities in public education and federally funded institutions. This act was intended to create more equal opportunities for people with disabilities at school and in the workplace. The Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975 enforced equal access to education for students with disabilities and one free meal each day at school. This act enabled parents of students with disabilities to have agency in their child's education plan. The act also mandated that all students with special needs must be placed in the least restrictive environment, so they are encouraged to interact with students without disabilities as frequently as possible based upon each child's individual needs. The amendments made to the Education for All Handicapped Children Act in 1986 extended the rights of students with disabilities in public education to preschool-aged children. In 1990, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act was renamed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, removing the words handicapped and disabled from the act. IDEA 1990 included students with autism and traumatic brain injuries and expanded rehabilitation and social work services in public education. Later, in 2004, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act was enacted to not only serve students with disabilities, but improve their education through early intervention, evidence-based practices, and highly qualified special education teachers. I once had a professor that preached to us, fair is not always equal. I like this quote, fair isn't everybody getting the same thing, fair is everybody getting what they need in order to be successful, because I feel like it represented that. The 2008 amendments to the Americans with Disabilities Act made the definition of students with disabilities more lenient so that more students in need of disability services in public education would qualify in order to have their needs met. This act provided broader coverage to those with disabilities at school and in the workplace. No Child Left Behind provides incentives for schools that demonstrate improvement for students with IEPs and 504 plans. No Child Left Behind measures progress through student standardized test scores, which do not paint a complete picture of a student's growth. However, they do make schools accountable for providing quality education for students with disabilities. I don't always find political cartoons super funny, but I like this one. It says, "Is this the test? To test us for the test, to see if we are ready for the test." I thought that was representative of high-stakes testing implemented by No Child Left Behind. In 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act replaced No Child Left Behind, but retained and modified some of the testing requirements. Every Student Succeeds moved the power from the federal government to individual state governments to determine schools' accountability, plans, goals, and consequences for schools that are not performing to the state standards. Now that the states make these decisions, it allows for more localized special education practices that will hopefully have a positive impact on the students. Parents of students with disabilities now also have the option to request permission to opt their child out of statewide testing. And this is where I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for listening.